This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
With reluctance and regret, the most senior commander of U.S. forces in the Middle East says he's stepping down. The reason? A perception that he's at odds with George Bush over Iran. He's playing down the reality of those perceptions, but in the past, the career Navy man has upset the White House with his comments on Iran. In a moment, analysis of what this means for U.S. policy in the region. First, from Washington, Rob Reynolds reports.
For a little less than a year, Admiral William Fallon has been the top American commander for the Middle East.
Iraq can be turned around.
In that time, he's been outspoken in his rejection of Bush administration's saber-rattling over Iran's alleged nuclear weapons program. And he has urged engaging Iran, not bombing it. Fallon's resignation was announced by Defense Secretary Robert Gates.
Good afternoon. Admiral Fallon advised me of his decision early this morning. He told me that, quote, the current embarrassing situation, public perception of differences between my views and administration policy, and the distraction this causes from the mission make this the right thing to do.
The abrupt resignation comes after an article in the magazine Esquire portraying Fallon as clashing with the administration over Iran. The article, by a respected military writer, says Fallon's opposition was solely responsible for preventing the war with Iran that President George Bush and Vice President Dick Cheney want to start before their terms end.
Iran is a threat to peace.
Last year, while Bush was ratcheting up the rhetoric and warning of a third world war over Iran, Fallon gave an interview to Al Jazeera. He said, quote, this constant drumbeat of conflict is not helpful and not useful. I expect there will be no war, and that is what we ought to be working for. Analysts are skeptical, however, that such a senior military officer and one recognized as a brilliant strategist would resign over a mere misperception.
Well, I think it's basically for the exact opposite reason that they said. I think he disagreed with the Bush administration too often. And possibly they're even removing him because it makes it easier for them to go attack Iran. But I think the real reason is policy differences, despite what they said, and besides what Secretary Gates and Admiral Fallon said. This is just common in Washington to disavow policy differences.
U.S. intelligence agencies now say Iran does not have an active nuclear weapons program. Nevertheless, Bush continues to issue dire warnings to Tehran. And Cheney, who has reportedly been driving the hard line against Iran from within the White House, plans to visit the Middle East this coming weekend to consult with U.S. allies. Rob Reynolds, Al Jazeera, Washington.
So let's take a closer look now at the possible implications of Admiral Fallon's resignation. Here's Clayton Swisher.
He's been wearing the uniform for 45 years, and until Wednesday, Admiral William Fallon's portfolio as U.S. Central Commander included America's thorniest issues, especially Iran. For some analysts, Fallon's resignation is a clear sign of how the Iran issue penetrates the U.S. administration.
Iran and the United States are now deep, deep inside each other's spheres of influence, and there is no robust diplomacy taking place between the two.
The catalyst for Fallon's early departure appears to be this magazine article. It portrays Fallon as the only person standing in between the Bush administration and a war against Iran. That was not a reputation that Fallon seemed ashamed to have. In an exclusive interview with Al Jazeera last September, Fallon tried his best to lessen U.S.-Iranian tensions. He said it was his hope that there would be no war. Months later, after meeting with Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak in Cairo, Fallon said it was inaccurate to believe that a war with Iran was inevitable. That could not have gone down well with those in the Bush administration pursuing brinksmanship with Tehran.
The Iranian regime needs to know that if it stays on its present course, the international community is prepared to impose serious consequences. The United States joins other nations in sending a clear message We will not allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon.
أفاد مراسل العربية في عمان أن السلطات الأردنية أفرجت صباح اليوم.
Al-Arabiya correspondent in Amman reported that this morning the Jordanian authorities released Abu Muhammad al-Maqdisi, one of the visionaries of the Jama'at al-Islamiyya in Jordan. The correspondent reported that a senior security official said that the release was made for humanitarian reasons. The security agency made an administrative arrest of him after he made statements to a media outlet. Al-Maqdisi is the spiritual father for the former Al-Qaeda leader Abu Mus'ab al-Zarqawi and many others who belong to extremist Islamic groups. Joining us from Amman is Mr. Muhammad Abu Rumman, a researcher on the affairs of Islamic groups. They say that Al-Maqdisi was released for humanitarian reasons. However, some say that a deal was made between them. Do you speculate that there really was a deal?
I don't
think there was a deal between al-Maqdisi and the Jordanian authorities. There are real humanitarian and health reasons. It is known that al-Maqdisi's health has deteriorated in the past few months as a result of some of the hunger strikes that he engaged in a psychological condition. A Human Rights Watch report and many other organizations have detailed al-Maqdisi's poor condition. I think that al-Maqdisi's convictions and self-reevaluation have not reached a point to where he is able to make a deal with the Jordanian authorities. He has also not yet arrived to the point reached by the Jamal al-Islamiyya in Egypt in its reevaluations, such as approving the legitimacy of the government and acceptance of many of its policies. Maqdisi is still in the middle of the road between the ideology which he had adopted and the reality which the Jordanian authorities want him to reach.
This practice is followed by many security agencies in Arab countries with these kinds of Islamic groups in an attempt to appease these organizations. Why isn't this the case for al-Maqdisi?
As I said, I do not think that al-Maqdisi has not yet reached the point in his convictions, which for example was reached by Mr. Imam Sharif in Egypt, or the Jama'a al-Islamiyya, or even some of the leaders of al-Qaeda in Saudi Arabia. The man has made some acceptable self-re-examinations. He criticized his own pupil al-Zarqawi in Iraq. He has written some books in which he criticizes the mistakes of his organization. However, he has not yet reached the point to which he has formed new ideas or opinions. He is still in the middle of the road. For this reason, I don't think there was a deal based on his current convictions.
After these steps that he has taken, such as criticizing his pupil Abu Mus'ab al-Zarqawi, should we be waiting for new steps by Maqdisi in an attempt to repent or to re-evaluate some members of the organization, as what happened in Algeria, for example?
This is what we hope. I think Abu Muhammad al-Maqdisi has a suitable opportunity now for the disappearance of Zarqawi from the scene, and after the major setback experienced by al-Qaeda in Iraq, and even amidst the re-examinations that have been made here and there by Islamic groups in many Arab countries. Today there is suitable opportunity for al-Maqdisi to tell his side, become more motivated and daring, and progress forward to take the steps to confront radicalism and former ideologies. I think there is a vacuum in the leadership of this movement and front in Jordan, which will help Maqdisi in the expected process of re-examinations. I personally met with the man in a publicized dialogue. I think that he says things in private that he cannot completely publicize. I hope that he becomes more daring and be more encouraged to publicize such discussions and these re-examinations to save the many youth who are adopting this ideology.
مسألة اختطاف المطران بولس فرج رحو تتفاعل محليا إقليميا ودوليا وتتكثف
The kidnapping of Archbishop Paulus Faraj Raho is generating reactions at the national, regional and international levels. Meanwhile, pleas for his immediate release have intensified. In a show of solidarity with kidnapped Archbishop Raho, a meeting was held in the Chaldean Archdiocese of Beirut. In a speech before the various political and religious blocs and leaders from Lebanon and Iraq, the head of the Chaldean Church in Lebanon, Michel Khasarji, urged international organizations as well as Arab, Muslim and Western countries to exert efforts to secure the immediate and unconditional release of Archbishop Raho. The Secretary General of the Middle East Council of Churches, George Ibrahim Saleh, expressed condemnation against the ongoing kidnappings and killings in Iraq. Saleh further said that these acts will not serve the good relationship between Muslims and Christians and will also threaten the coexistence among the communities. Meanwhile, the residents of Dora continue to suffer from the lack of basic services despite the gradual security improvement witnessed in most areas of Baghdad. The residents called on the government to start implementing the long-awaited development projects to help improve services in the region.
Although the security situation in and around Baghdad has recently improved, many areas continue to suffer from the lack of basic services. Dora is among the areas that suffered the most during the reign of armed groups, which left behind a large residue of poor services. In addition to the problems of electricity, water, sewer, and unpaved streets, the unemployment is another troubling issue for many residents.
We do not have any public services such as electricity and sewer. In addition, water pressure is very weak and the streets are not paved.
We don't have services such as electricity and sewer.
We are being alienated. They didn't include us in the awakening. They didn't give a job to our son. He is unemployed.
As far as the health sector is concerned, the quality of health services in Dora fluctuates from one neighborhood to the other. While some areas have a surplus of medical centers, others are in dire need of health services and medicine. In contrast, the services at the education sector are not as bad.
The health services in the areas of Dora and Nineveh are very poor. We are pleading to the health minister to reactivate the rule of the Jabal Sharqi Medical Center.
Our school has basic services. However, one of the problems is that the playground is not paved. Also, the manholes in the school are not covered, which makes us worried that the students may fall in them.
The government must act and improve the public services in these neighborhoods. In addition, they must organize periodic field visits in these areas in order to assess and improve the quality of services there.
This area is secure. However, the displaced families are afraid to return. We are extending an invitation to the displaced families to return to their original area, which has been declared secure by the security forces. As far as schools are concerned, Superintendent of Kerch's Unified School District promised to extend services to local schools. We will also visit several local clinics and health centers. In addition, local security leaders are extending services to these areas.
Now that the security situation in areas around Baghdad has leveled off, extending services to the local residents is yet another factor contributing to the return of the displaced families. Both security and public services, when combined, will play a major role in breaking the psychological barrier that is preventing many displaced families from returning to their homes. An Al Jazeera correspondent in Cairo has learned that Egypt has suspended exports of natural gas to Israel, scheduled to be transported at the beginning of this month. An Egyptian source in the oil and gas sector said that this step indicates Cairo's desire to use gas exports as a political card on Israel to make it stop its operations in the Gaza Strip.
2 years ago, Egypt and Israel signed an agreement to export Egyptian gas to Israel through the EMG company, a joint Israeli-Egyptian company.
Cairo sells its natural gas to Israel. This is a reality that was established and facilitated by the Camp David peace accord between the two sides. The agreement was implemented in 2005 through a bilateral agreement that would allow the transport of Egyptian gas through 100 kilometers of pipelines buried under the sea. This is how the tour of Egyptian gas ends and is transported from Al Arish to Ashkelon, providing Israelis with energy and electricity. As has been reported, a deal like this is valued at $5.2 billion. According to the deal, Egypt sells Israel nearly 7 million cubic meters of natural gas for 15 years. The deal is being coordinated and implemented by the EMG company, which is an Israeli-Egyptian joint venture with the majority of shares owned by an Egyptian businessman. However, the equation may turn in favor of the Israeli partners. This news comes after media reports leaked information confirming that the Egyptian investor is looking to sell half of his shares to his Israeli and foreign partners. With this, the Egyptian investor, who currently owns 2/3 of the shares in the company, will lose his privilege as the largest investor with the majority of the shares. The deal was rejected by the Egyptian opposition, which coincided with a cool down in the relations between Cairo and Tel Aviv, especially after the latter labeled the Gaza Strip as a hostile entity. Then, the Egyptian president, who met with some leaders from the Hebrew state, vowed not to let the residents of the Gaza Strip starve, which prompted hundreds of Gaza residents to storm into the Egyptian city of Al Arish. This news comes after Israel has imposed a tight blockade on the Gaza Strip, which plunged the strip into darkness and poverty. It was Al Arish, where gas is being transported from Egypt to Israel in order to give the latter its need of electricity, that rebelled and embraced the Palestinians whose electric services were cut off.
Israel continues to carry out its aggression in the Palestinian territories. This news comes after the Israeli forces opened fire on a Palestinian activist from the Jerusalem Brigades, the military wing for the Islamic Jihad, in the northern West Bank. The activist was killed in a clash with an Israeli special force that surrounded his home in the village of Saida, north of Tulkarem. A spokesman for the Israeli army confirmed that a Palestinian activist was killed in a clash with the Israeli army, which surrounded and demolished his home. Meanwhile, the Islamic Jihad confirmed that the martyred activist was one of its members. The residents of Saida clashed with the Israeli army after some youths threw rocks at the withdrawing Israeli units. It seems that the killing, the displacement, and the land confiscation by Israel are not enough. Israel is now giving Palestinian land as gifts to its friends, or perhaps as bribes. On his first day during a visit to France, the Israeli President Shimon Peres gave his French counterpart and friend, Nicolas Sarkozy, an olive grove measuring 3,600 square feet. The grove is located in occupied Palestine near the city of Jaffa. This goes well with the saying, "He who gives what he doesn't own to someone who doesn't deserve it." Meanwhile, Israel continues to destroy Palestinian fields and uproot their trees. Sharouk Assad reports from occupied Jerusalem.
He who doesn't own the thing has no right to give it away, but not in Israel's tradition. Israel doesn't only steal the land, but also gives it away as a gift or maybe as bribery. The Israeli President Shimon Peres gave his French counterpart a large Palestinian olive grove in southern Jaffa. The city of Jaffa, also known as the Bride of the Sea, was occupied by Israel in 1948.
Jaffa is my birthplace. This act stirs strong, angry emotions within me. I would prefer that Shimon Peres gives Sarkozy a promise to stop the settlements in the Palestinian territories, rather than giving him a piece of land that carries the memories, hopes, and dreams of an entire nation.
ترتبط بأحلام وذكريات وآمال شعب بأكمله.
Israel told the world a big lie. Now Israel believes that lie, and it believes that it owns the land it robbed from the people after displacing them. This land belongs to the more than 6 million Palestinians. Israel is giving itself the right to do whatever it wishes with Palestinian land. This is total arrogance and disregard to people's feelings and human rights.
It's likely that a Palestinian family whom Israel expelled in 1948 owns this olive grove. Perhaps the family is currently living in one of the refugee camps in Jordan, Lebanon, or the Gaza Strip. It's also likely that the family has told their children and grandchildren about this olive grove and their dream of returning there one day. Meanwhile, Israel continues to act arrogantly in a blatant disregard to the past that it stole and to the future it doesn't own. If the olive trees were to speak, they would have told us who owns them. Shuruq Asad, Dubai TV, Occupy Jerusalem.
In self-incriminating testimony, Washington accused Israel of using excessive force and committing human rights violations against the Palestinians during 2007. However, Washington stopped short of listing Israel on its blacklist in its annual report on human rights violations. In the report, which is published by the U.S. State Department, Washington listed Syria, Sudan, Iran, Cuba, North Korea, Zimbabwe, Pakistan, and Venezuela as the world's worst human rights violators. In addition, Washington dropped China from its blacklist, which includes the world's worst human rights violators, and added it to the list of authoritarian regimes. In addition, the report cited an improvement in human rights in Ghana, Morocco, Mauritania, and Haiti.
There is growing outrage today over a report here on Israel Television's Channel 1 about an alleged revenge plot by students of the Merkaz Harav Yeshiva. One MK has called for a police investigation into the report, calling it baseless libel. IBA's Eli Wagelanter has that story.
MK Zvulun Orlev from the NRP filed a complaint today with Public Security Minister Avi Dichter, demanding that he arrest the suspects if such a vengeance plot actually exists. Said Orlev, it is not a stretch to say that there are those trying to blacken the face of religious Zionism at a time when it is mourning over its children. If arrests are not carried out immediately, said Orlev, this will be proof that we are talking about baseless libel with malicious and evil intent. There are only two choices. Either the suspects are arrested, or whomever leaked the story comes out and apologizes to Merkaz Harav. Officials at the yeshiva in Jerusalem said that they are considering a libel suit against Channel 1. The report of the alleged plot was broadcast last night by reporter Ayala Hassan, who accused a Merkaz Harav rabbi of approving a revenge attack planned by 3 former students. According to the Channel 1 report, 3 men aged 25 to 35 discussed possible revenge attacks on a leading Muslim connected with the Temple Mount, following the terrorist killing in the yeshiva last week, in which 8 young students were murdered. The vague Channel 1 report, which relied heavily on unnamed sources, was quickly picked up by the Associated Press and published in papers worldwide under the headline, Yeshiva Graduates Plan Revenge Attack Against Arab Figure. Yeshiva officials insist that the report was completely baseless and pointed out that no arrests have been made based on the allegations. In fact, said the yeshiva, head Rabbi Yaakov Shapira specifically warned students not to seek revenge following the verbal attack on Education Minister Yuli Tamir when she visited the seminary. Chasson told Voice of Israel Radio that she stands by her story, which involves students who finished IDF service in the most elite units. In the meantime, notices posted today along Jerusalem's Kiryat Moshe neighborhood, where the Merkaz Harav Yeshiva is located, is urging Jews to avenge their enemies. The poster notices say, quote, each and every one is required to imagine what the enemy is plotting to do to us and to match it measure for measure. The notices were undersigned by many well-known rabbis. Eli Wagelanter, IBA News.
Our reporter adds that Internal Security Minister Avi Dichter has ordered the demolition of the Merkaz Harav terrorists' home.
Southern Lebanon remains terrorized by cluster bombs. Its inhabitants, shepherds, farmers, and children are still haunted by the leftovers from the June war. More in the following report by Ogarit Dandash.
The towns of Marun al-Ras, Aita, Bint Jubail, Wadi Sluki, Wadi al-Hujair, and many others are a blazing reminder of victory and yearning. But these names instill fear and terror among the shepherds, farmers, and the citizens of the south, who are threatened by deceptive bombs waiting to explode, taking along a foot, a hand, or the life of a Lebanese person. Mahmoud Yaqub is a shepherd who thought that his land had fully returned to him after the war. He took his sheep towards Wadi Sluki, but he returned incapable of supporting his family, a blind father, a decrepit mother, and a sister. The only track he left behind in the valley was his boot, which was snatched off his foot and caused serious injury.
انتزعت من قدمه بطريقة خاطئة مسببة أضرارا جسيمة.
ما حيتجي عن إلا فجرت هذه أماتها كلها لهي هذه أوتار كلها رايحة هذه كلها راح.
As soon as my foot touched it, it exploded. It took all this part, all the nerves in my foot. My heel was also gone. It removed all the skin there. I wanted to get up but couldn't. I was there from noon until 5 in the evening. After half an hour, if I hadn't moved my legs, I would have died. I lay there under the sun with insects on my bloody face. I crawled until I was found. Since then, my sheep graze close to my relatives, my aunt's family, who live upstairs. Everything seems normal, but at the same time, nothing is normal. I don't have my freedom anymore.
The medical cost is covered by the Council of the South, but the family that lost its income provider has no one to support it.
If you had seen him sunstruck and crawling, I asked him how he made it back after what happened. He said he had to crawl so that people could see him. Now I plant tobacco and wheat in the garden. I grind the wheat to eat. We boil food. Last year I sold the tobacco for $1 million or $1.5 million liras, about $680. But this year I won't plant anything in it.
ولا يزال على أرض الجنوب مئات الآلاف من القنابل العنقودية غير المنفجرة الناجمة عن قذائف.
There are hundreds of thousands of unexploded cluster bombs from missiles fired by Israel during the June war. Manufactured in the U.S., the missiles are M483, 155 millimeters. Each missile carries 84 bombs. This is in addition to a newer kind of cluster bomb, the CBU-103, which dispenses about 202 bombs. Each bomb creates a crater with a circumference of 76 meters. The bombs that did not explode immediately stayed on the ground. They became mines that strike people and machines. The bombs look like soda cans. The number of civilian injuries from cluster bombs within the first year of the ceasefire was 204. This number is equal to a third of the casualties in the June war. The 204 incidents include 22 deaths and 17 cases of extremity amputations. Among the injured were 175 people who were simply carrying out their daily affairs, including 38 farmers and 14 shepherds. The ages of the injured range from 11 to 66 years old.
وتتراوح أعمارهم بين 11 و 66 عاما.
هي المهاجرين ارجعوا غالي الوطن غالي الغرب تركوها وتعوا لبنان حيل ومعوا العيش طبيعي.
Mahmoud is one of the many people who did not leave their land during the war, refusing to turn it over to the occupier. But how long will the people of the South stay standing in the face of an enemy that has no face and no address? Israel left defeated, and so they sowed the land with spite that explodes in the bodies of shepherds, farmers, and children. From here, the southerner looks to Wadi Sluki and its surroundings, reaching Wadi al-Hujair. They overlook land that is occupied by cluster bombs, but those in charge are doing nothing to free them. From the town of Hula at the border, this is Ogarit Dandash reporting for New TV.
Get more news about the Middle East online at linktv.org/mosaic.
The Mosaic webpage offers a complete archive of Mosaic programs, program transcripts, the Mosaic video podcast, and the Mosaic Intelligence Report, a weekly analysis of the hottest stories from the Middle East. The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible with the support of viewers like you. Thank you. This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news, with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs which connect you to the world.